1 in 40 Coloradans have COVID. We keep hearing that number, and some have questioned the math, so we asked how it all adds up. For weeks, health leaders and elected officials have warned of a Thanksgiving surge of cases, yet it seems each week since, the numbers have gone down. The pandemic has sparked a surge in crime in the metro area, but police are making fewer arrests, turning a hobby into a sweet force for good. And further proof that we treat our pets better than we do some people. I'm Steve Stager in for Kyle Clark. This is Next. Colorado has not seen a Thanksgiving-related bump in COVID-19 numbers, but the governor's office still says 1 in 40 Coloradans are contagious with coronavirus. We will have more on the reasons that surge doesn't seem to be happening in just a moment, but we've referenced the 1 in however many number for months now. Our Marshall Zellinger wanted to understand the math behind it.
The bottom of a news release from Governor Jared Polis last night said 1 in 40 Coloradans are contagious with COVID-19, 2.5% of people in Colorado. Just before Thanksgiving, on November 24th, the number was 1 in 41. 9 days earlier, on November 15th, the governor's office reported 1 in 110. November 5th, it was 1 in 100. And back on August 11th, it was 1 in 900. How the heck does the state figure out how many people might be contagious with COVID-19?
We use this SEIR model. Susceptible, exposed, infected, recovered, or frankly, recovered or deceased.
Dr. Jonathan Samet, the dean of the Colorado School of Public Health, helped me try to understand the model and the math by using an analogy.
Think about, for example, putting water into a sink, and some water is flowing out and some water is going in. The faster it comes in, the higher the water level. And that's essentially what we are doing with the model, saying how fast does it come in.
Is it possible for someone like me to be able to do the calculation myself on any given day?
Well, the easy answer is no, because it's coming out of the model directly. We know how long the water will stay. We know what rate it drains out. So if it comes in faster and faster and faster, water level rises, same as the 1 in X goes from 1 in 100 to 1 in 50.
Now we're seeing number of cases and hospitalizations dropping significantly, which takes us the other direction, where the 1 in 40 should soon become 1 in 50, 1 in 75, 1 in 100. You get what I'm saying.
The hospitalizations have dropped substantially over the last week, roughly. So we're, in a sense now, the epidemic curve is coming under control better. And that 1 in X number should be rising from 1 in 40 to something else. And we look at that every week.
I really wanted to show actual math as part of this equation, and I'm still trying to get an understanding. What I know is that the state multiplies by a certain number because they assume they don't have 100% of the positive cases. And Dr. Samet told me, Steve, that he thinks CDPHE is only getting 35% of the actual positive cases. So as part of that model, I have to assume they're multiplying by almost 3 in one part of the equation to account for the cases they never actually get through a true positive test.
Now I can understand why this is so complicated. A lot of numbers to throw out there. Marshall, we appreciate it. So, hey, bear with us as we run through a few more numbers. As of today, COVID-19 hospitalizations in Colorado continue to trend down, 21 fewer than yesterday. The numbers have been trending down for more than a week now. COVID testing in Colorado has slowed recently because of the weather, and our viewer Janet asked if that's impacted new case numbers. Today, Governor Polis says that could be true. New cases statewide are down to about 1,600, but testing has dropped too, with fewer than 32,000 tests yesterday. And the state's test positivity rate, that's trending down as well. The weekly average is now just under 9% for the first time since November 1st. It still remains too high. Epidemiologists prefer that rate to stay below 5%. The low number that really remains uncomfortably high is deaths. And state data has our average 7-day or average of deaths at about 57 in the state each day. We got a sobering reminder of that toll in Pueblo County this afternoon. The coroner tweeted that a truck that's serving as a deployable morgue is in service in the county there. Last Wednesday, Pueblo County reported 26 COVID-19 deaths in the county. So when you look at the overall numbers, they would seem to indicate that the dreaded Thanksgiving bump in Colorado didn't really happen. For weeks leading up and following the holiday, we heard public health experts and state leaders warning us about the impact of people ignoring guidance and getting together for Thanksgiving. So if you've been following along pretty closely, you know we usually see the impact of an event about a week later in cases and about 2 weeks later in hospitalizations. Leading up to Thanksgiving, we saw some of the highest numbers of the pandemic, but in the weeks since, those numbers have dropped off. So I asked both Governor Polis and infectious disease specialist Dr. Michelle Barron what they think happened. Both credit you for listening to advice and keeping your guard up.
By and large, the numbers bear out that Coloradans made good, science-informed decisions to keep their families safe. And that's why we've not experienced the same Thanksgiving surge as other states and then the nation in aggregate.
It's amazing when you look at the difference between 10% compliance, even just 10% more. It's not linear. The impact is actually much greater than that 10% of adherence.
Both of them were very cautious and nervous people would get too comfortable for Christmas. The same guidance applies. Don't get together with people from outside of your household unless you can quarantine for a while beforehand. Wear your mask and keep some distance. Our next question comes from a viewer named Jim who wants to know more about the process of administering Pfizer's COVID vaccine. Since it's stored at ultra cold temperatures, he asked, what is the process used to warm it up and how long does it take and what temperature is it when it's injected? So we sent Jim's questions to both Pfizer and the state. The state got back to us first. Vials can be thawed in the refrigerator at temps ranging from 35 degrees to 46 degrees Fahrenheit. A single tray of vials may take up to 3 hours to thaw out. Fewer vials will thaw faster, of course. The vials can also be thawed at room temperature in about 30 minutes. Thawed vials can be stored in the refrigerator for up to 5 days. The vials must reach room temperature before they're diluted and injected, and they must be diluted within 2 hours of reaching room temperature. An attorney for President Trump told a Colorado legislative panel today that they ought to investigate Colorado's election process. Not that she found any evidence of fraud here. Jenna Ellis's testimony this morning generated headlines around town, but to be honest, there's not much to share from her appearance in front of the legislature's audit committee because she didn't present any evidence of funny business. We were intrigued, though, by the testimony of another witness at that hearing, former Republican Secretary of State Scott Gessler. Gessler suggested that signatures change too much, and there has to be a better way to verify your signatures or verify voters' identities. So he offered a unique suggestion.
I think Colorado, if it wants to maintain the lead, needs to start looking at other forms of doing this if we're going to remain an all-mail ballot state. I personally like the idea of a biometric, something like a thumbprint, or a ballot gets sent out. It has a little ink pad attached, on it. You can put a thumbprint and your thumbprint gets matched as a proper matching procedure. I don't know if that's the answer.
All the police departments were listening like, hey, how do we get into that database? So what was the conclusion of the Election Integrity Committee hearing that started at 10 a.m., didn't include specific evidence of election fraud in Colorado? It's still going on right now. Hey, may I make a recommendation? This is the segment our bosses love, where we recommend something that the competition did. It's the work of Michael Tesler, a political science professor at the University of California, Irvine. His piece appears on the website 538.com. Tesler writes about 2 political ads from Raphael Warnock, the Democratic candidate in one of 2 Senate runoffs in Georgia. Using research about dog breeds and pet ownerships, the article explores how Warnock's campaign uses the candidate's pet beagle to cut against white voters' stereotypes of black people. It's a great discussion, especially as how it relates to our current efforts in Colorado around breed bans. Again, it's the work of Michael Tesler for 538.com. Police departments along the Front Range are making fewer arrests this year, but that does not mean crime is going down. She bakes comfort food to help others find safety.
It really tugged on my heart to want to try and help in that area, just with my personal past experience.
A local bakery making cookies for a cause. Next. reported today about another apparent effect of the pandemic. There's been a significant decline in arrests across the Front Range. 9 News crime and justice reporter Matt Jablow found that doesn't necessarily correspond to the crime rate.
The trend in the Denver area this year is pretty clear. The number of people arrested is way down, despite a general increase in crime. According to the latest data, arrests in Denver so far in 2020 have declined 31%, even though major crime has increased 18%. In Westminster, while homicides and arsons are up, overall crime is actually down about 18%, but arrests are down much more, a 65% drop. In Aurora, arrests are down 35%, major crime up 16%.
We're making fewer contacts with people in general.
Aurora Deputy Police Chief Darren Parker said the sizable decline in arrests in Aurora can be attributed largely to the pandemic, specifically the department's shift to more online and phone contact in order to help stop the spread of the virus and help keep officers and residents safe.
We've had to change the way we do business.
Parker pointed to 2 other factors that could be at play. This year's demonstrations regarding the death of Elijah McClain at the hands of Aurora police, and Colorado Senate Bill 217, which among other things allows people to sue police officers for their actions on the job. The net effect, according to Parker, is a climate that appears to discourage proactive policing.
I know a lot of officers are concerned as far as how they go about making contacts. Just regular contacts in the past don't look exactly the same as they used to. And so that has, I think, an impact as well on the numbers.
For his part, Denver Police Chief Paul Pazin offered no easy answers to this year's decline in arrests, insisting there's been no directive to officers to be any less proactive than they've been in the past, and dismissing the possibility that officers are pulling back. Is it possible that for whatever reason, your officers are intentionally not getting out of their cars this year, laying down, as some people describe it?
That is not the case.
Instead, Pazin called the low number of arrests simply another unusual aspect to a very unusual year.
I think 2020 is completely different than anything that we would be able to compare it to.
When asked if he thought the number of arrests will return to a more normal level once the pandemic ends, Pazin said at this point, like many things these days, it would be difficult to predict. For Next, I'm Matt Jablow.
When asked about the sharp decline in arrests in Denver, Mayor Michael Hancock said in a statement that policing has been made even harder this year by, quote, an unprecedented global pandemic, record unemployment, and weeks of mass demonstration.
Clear, cold, but beautiful in downtown Denver tonight as our third storm system exits the region. This storm didn't bring a lot of snow, but certainly a cold day. Our high at 32, that is 10 degrees colder than average, but we're headed into the 40s tomorrow. This first storm system is exiting the area, followed by another one already moving on shore in the Pacific Northwest that will bring the promise of more snow to the mountains by Friday and a 30% chance of snow to Denver by Friday night. Between now and then, Wednesday and Thursday, sunshine, 40s, and really just beautiful, quiet weather conditions. There will be a few leftover snow showers around Aspen, Craig, Steamboat, and Meeker, but no advisories tonight for travel or for snow. And so it's going to be a cold one with clear skies. Our low at 17 with sunshine. How about 43 for a change? Mid-40s on Thursday, cooler with a 30% chance of snow Friday. We have mid-40s Saturday, into the 50s for the weekend, and mid-50s for the winter solstice, the start of winter on Monday.
The things our pets get us to do is the most Colorado thing we saw today. And a local bakery is finding ways to support victims of domestic violence.
I wanted to open the doors for people to have a safe space or feel like they can talk about it.
The backstory that inspired this work, next. It's no secret the pandemic has brought with it an increase in domestic violence cases. Some of the victims, they feel as though there's nowhere to turn and they're alone in their situation. Our Foster Gaines met a woman from Littleton who can relate. and she's offering support to others from her kitchen.
Baking has been a hobby for me since my high school days.
The kitchen has been a sweet office for Meredith.
I actually recently just started my own home bakery. It's called Flooded with Light Bakery.
She whipped up this project to use her passion as a platform, spotlighting and helping local organizations.
Right now we're doing the Christmas cookies for a cause.
This week, Meredith is selling her holiday treats to help an issue that once touched her life.
This cause is close to my heart, just based off of my history as a victim of stalking and gaslighting in my early 20s.
Meredith is giving 20% of her bakery's proceeds this week to Safe House Denver, an organization dedicated to helping domestic violence survivors.
Is really going to help provide all of those services. So the shelter, the counseling, the resources, kind of everything all together for survivors.
Shannon Bolts is with Safe House Denver.
The more we talk about it, the more folks understand and can realize that it's safe to seek help, that it's okay to seek help, that they are not alone in this situation.
Safe House helped Meredith overcome one of the most difficult situations of her life.
Going through a really tough time with domestic violence, baking served as a therapeutic outlet for me too. So being able to engage in that creative process, it just really gave me hope. And so I'm trying to use that hope to give back.
She's turning cookies into conversation and making a delightful gig worth doing.
I feel like if I could turn my hobby into something that would help in an area that's been painful for me and help others get through that pain, then why not do that?
For Next, I'm Foster Gaines.
Delicious food for an incredible organization. The Flooded with Light Bakery fundraiser is set to end on Saturday, but if sales go well, Meredith plans to restock her treats for at least another day. Owning a pet can be a burden in the best kind of way. That and your feedback next. The most Colorado thing we saw today is an example of the kind of status our pets often achieve in our lives. Our viewer Lisa sent us this picture from Denver's Congress Park neighborhood where Kylie the St. Bernard got a sled ride without even having to do any of the work. Send your photos to us next at 9news.com or get our attention with the hashtag HeyNext. Robert writes in tonight. He says, "Where is Kyle this time?" Well, Robert, despite my persistent protests, the company continues to offer this extremely fringe benefit called time off. I'm going to keep pushing them not to allow that, but in the meantime, Kyle's going to keep taking it. So we'll see what happens. Maybe I'll keep lodging a formal complaint and I guess see what happens next time. Hey, by the way, we want you to be part of this thing for years now that you've been meeting here for a nightly conversation. We are going to freshen up the look of things here on Next in the new year. We want to see your smiling face as part of it. We want to take a big Next family photo. We can't all squeeze in the frame. Take a selfie along with anyone you watch the show with. Send it to 9news.com/next, and we'll see you next time.